This is other state champ Alex Thompson. This is Josh Elwer from the University of Northern Iowa, and you're listening to Potentially Dangerous on IA Wrestle.
Hey, is this heaven?
No, it's Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous podcast with the guys from IA Wrestle.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at IA Wrestle. Time to strap it up and get to the show.
When the whistle go.
Well, welcome back. This is IA Wrestle, Potentially Dangerous. I'm your host, Tony Hager. Ross Barczyk, he's in Paris, or who knows where he's at. He's not in Iowa, so we've got Lars Underbakke. Both of us are back here. We have not done a podcast since before Fargo. I mean, it's been a long time. Everyone's really kind of been busy this summer with kids, and Ragbri. There's been so many things that have happened here this summer, and lots of wrestling talk to get to, Lars. I mean, we're really kind of, our hands are deep in the night of conflict, but we got a lot of things that have happened here in the last couple months. We're going to touch on a few of the old topics and some of the new topics here in this podcast. Talk about Iowa, really, guys leaving, guys coming in possibility. UNI getting a slew of in-state recruits. And a little Iowa UNI banter online here. And then talk a little bit about Teske, kind of where he's leaning, when he might be making his decision. And then obviously talking about Thomas Gilman at the World Championships coming up next week. And then maybe see where else we can sprinkle in here. If you followed this podcast in the past month, before we took went into our caves. We did this online on Facebook Live, and we're going to bring that back. But we want to bring it back when we commit to you guys every single week at doing this podcast. Summer gets done, baseball gets done, and we really commit to it. We're going to go back to that Facebook Live where you can get your questions in and all that good stuff. So in the meantime, if you've got any questions, hit us up on Twitter at IA Wrestle with topics, questions, anything you may have. But without further ado, let's get to the show. Lars, welcome back. It feels good to talk a little wrestling, right?
Yeah, it's been a while, man. It's great to be on here. Like I said, it's been busy summer. Been busy with Night of Conflict stuff, trying to, get everything set up. But feels good to be on and talking a little wrestling.
Night of Conflict, there's 3 matches that have already been announced. You can check that out on IA Wrestle. We're going to, we can talk, we'll have a whole nother podcast about that. But you know us, you know what this is our 3rd year. We've done War at West Gym, so we're going to be bringing you some more matchups coming in the coming weeks. And tickets will be going on sale. We got VIP tickets, $100 tickets right now for that VIP experience. We're going to get you right on the mat, and it's going to be a fun time, and all the money goes to the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. So we're going to be at Carver Hawkeye less than 60 days for the Night of Conflict. It's crazy. But Iowa has a ton of movement this summer, from Mark Perry to Delgado. It is insane what has been happening in Iowa City. Lots of positive momentum, and some people, this could be a negative to them, but, behind scenes, it's not a huge deal. Biggest one really is Mejia, I would say. This is a flip-flop, back-and-forth deal. He was coming to Iowa, flips to Illinois, comes back to Iowa, he's flipped back to Illinois. What do you know about this situation, Lars, by just kind of reading online and talk, what are your thoughts on, I guess, the non-commitment, the commitment, and all this back-and-forth craziness?
Yeah, it's been a wild time. It's been interesting, kind of talking to coaches, talking to other guys on the team through all this, kind of getting their feelings. I know a lot of people really started counting on Mejia as the future at 133 for the Hawks. But if you notice, the university never really announced it. Talking to some of the guys, I don't think anybody was really counting on him making it. From what I know, he was cleared by the NCAA, but was never admitted into the University of Iowa. It's been long documented his issues academically, And I think those came into play again. I know the coaches were trying to get him to possibly even take a gray shirt, work on some grades for a year while living here. But he didn't want to do that. So off he goes again. He's a talent, but to me, maybe at this point not worth the headache and jumping around. So, it's too bad because that seems like a need weight right now. But, the Hawks are going to move on. They're going to recruit somebody else, and he becomes somebody else's headache as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you don't know exactly what it is. You hear, I talked to Tom Mahea, and he told me that Iowa didn't want him. I've heard that, Justin never talked to the University of Iowa about coming there. He just made his announcement that he was coming to Iowa. So really, when I talked to Tom, at the end of the day, it was a long story, really. And I didn't pry into it because it's not worth me prying into that kind of personal business when it comes to academics. If it is academics, that's just something, we're talking about 18-year-old kids. And, I don't think it's fair if that is, if that really is the issue. But obviously, you got to, he reapplied to go to Illinois. I don't know if he's officially at Illinois. I've heard he's going to gray shirt there. So what Iowa wanted him to do is what he's doing at Illinois from what we're told, but who knows. And then we've got just recently Jack Wagner. There's been rumblings of that happening for months here. He left the Iowa program a while ago here. Brock Rathbun, 3-time state champ, and Matt Malcolm. Part of that was a big recruiting class. I mean, do you remember back when we had the night of conflict, Lars? And it was like the next couple of weeks, that month, they just kept on coming and coming and coming from Iowa. And you're like, where are all these guys going to wrestle? And these guys getting on scholarship. It was fast moving for Iowa when they got all these kids.
Oh yeah, it was big time. A few of them committed right after the night of conflict, like you said. And, you always kind of wondered where some of them would fit in, and then you get Spencer Lee. People wondered about, what that would do to Wagner. He says now he's grown out of that. So to me, maybe he's the biggest hit as far as on the mat because of the possible hole at 133. No Mahea, Phil Lau will graduate this year. Kind of leaves you with that question of who's going to be the 33-pounder going forward. Could Rathbun or Wagner have been that guy? Malcolm was probably going to have a tough time getting into the lineup now, especially with Lugo coming in, Kemmers, Young. Malcolm was probably just kind of the odd guy out there. So, Nebraska Kearney will be a great place for him. I think he'll do well there, but probably didn't have a real spot at Iowa. But, I don't know that any of these are huge, huge misses, except for maybe the fact that, now people are looking at it and just wondering who's going to be the 133-pounder for Iowa after this year.
Yeah, you said I don't think it's a big deal. They are, room guys, I guess you could say, that just trying to crack that lineup. Probably weren't going to crack the lineup this year, but we've seen time and time again that you got to pay your dues. So maybe these kids just weren't willing to sit around and wait for that potential to be there. I mean, I don't blame them, but you gotta wonder, was the drive there for all these guys, this class coming in? What were their expectations, from the coaches? You don't know what those conversations are like. That 133 with Wagner, he's got his hands full to make a team at UNI with Rudy Yates at 33 and Albert going up to 41. You got Schwarm at 25 there too. So, UNI, it's an interesting move up there too. Getting Wagner out of Iowa City, I think will be good for him. From what I've been told, but, won't go there. So those three leaving, Rathbun going to Wartburg, Malcolm going to Kearney, not D2 programs. I've heard, Rathbun didn't get a release. Wagner got full releases. So it's interesting, too. I've been getting some text messages of, how does Tom or any coach really kind of decide who gets a release, who doesn't? What's your thoughts on coaches not releasing kids?
Yeah, I mean, it's a slippery slope. I mean, I kind of see it both ways. The fact that coaches can leave with really no penalty, yet the kids that are committed to them can't. To me, at first glance, that's a really hard thing. You look at it and you're like, man, if they can leave, why can't these kids make their decisions? They were 18 when they committed. Maybe they didn't know what they were getting themselves into. But at the same time, I see it the other way, and it becomes a slippery slope if you just let kids go wherever they want, whenever they want. I don't know. I don't know what the perfect solution is. Maybe there's a one-time exception, first time you transfer. After that, then you have to sit. I don't know what the deal is. To me, the biggest issue right now that I see with some of these transfers, not necessarily these guys, but the Big Ten having different rules than the rest of the NCAA, I think is really odd. To me, it should be whatever it is. It should be across the board, same no matter where you go.
I'm with you on that. I mean, because it's almost. I mean, it's not really fair, right? Because Big Ten is really the power conference. If you're going to transfer, you probably got recruited to one of those other Big Ten schools. That's not fair to the athlete too, I think. So there's lots of different angles that you could go with this, and I don't know the right answer. I've been on the side where, don't release a kid because if he commits, and you can center a whole program around a couple kids, and if they decommit, it can kill your program for a couple of years. Because you might have kids that you let go and say, oh, I can't give you that amount of scholarships, so you have this kid. It's killer for some of these coaches, so I don't blame them. I got to imagine Brock did get some money. I mean, he was a 3-time state champ. He had some injuries, too, that he was dealing with, too, so I think, not sure what they all got. But do want to switch to some positive for Iowa. Sam Cook, we had that news, broke that news on IA Russell that he was going to be flipping from the Iowa football team to the wrestling team. And I'll admit, when I was, Lars, you're heavy into high school wrestling, and Sam Cook, his senior years, when I really kind of started taking notice of him a little bit. What were your thoughts, I guess, when he was getting recruited to go to Oklahoma and then ultimately picked football? What were your thoughts? Did that strike you as odd, or is that something you thought that he would ultimately do?
I think from talking to people, it was something that I thought would probably happen, that he would go the football route. From what I understood, that was what he was more passionate about in high school. However, I know a lot of people doubted that he could really play at that level, and be successful. He was kind of a guy who was viewed as, a borderline D1 prospect maybe by people, where on the wrestling side, he was a really good prospect. I think he had a bright future. He was a really good recruit coming out of high school. I thought he could do really well at the D1 level. So from that aspect, I was a little surprised, just that I thought he'd have a lot more success on the mat. But, hopefully he's fully into it now. If he thinks football is not going to work, if he buys fully in, I think he's capable of being very good. Taking a year off is going to be hard. It's going to take some time to get back. But, we've seen guys like Luke Lofthouse and Dan Erickson and some guys take some time off, go away from the mat, come back and have some success. So I don't think it's out of the question that he can be a contributor down the road. I just think it's going to take him a little bit of time to get back into the groove of things, get back, get in with the wrestling team, figure everything out, get acclimated with that, and just get used to being back on the mat.
What I know from the situation was, the coaches loved Sam Cook. He came to every single practice. He lifted hard at everybody. I'm not sure if it was Brian Ferentz or Doyle that basically said, hey, if we had half the drive that you did with the size of some of our other guys, you'd be on the team no matter what. But the problem is he was too short for college football. He just was too short, not big enough. So they ultimately said, you're not going to be able to play in that spring game, which was a week ago. And that's kind of when he said, you know what? I want to, basically have my own destiny. I want to be able to, that way when I leave college or just every year, I can say, well, I didn't beat that kid out, right? He didn't leave it up to a coach, scouting him saying that he didn't think he could get it done. He's never had the opportunity to do it. So in wrestling, he knows it's just on you, man. So I give somebody huge kudos to, realizing that, yeah, like future-wise, money-wise, like he could grind out another 3-4 years, maybe see the field junior year, senior year, but wrestling really kind of is a passion, and He strikes me as a guy that's very driven for himself for goals. So I think this is going to be a good fit. I mean, 84 is where he's got to be, in my opinion, Lars. 97, he's just going to be too short, right? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen him in a while. I don't know how big he's gotten. You know, some guys have been successful up a weight. You know, you've got guys like Zach Thompson that used to wrestle for Iowa State. Some of those guys weren't necessarily tall. They were on the shorter end and were still successful. You know, there's been other ones. So I don't think it's out of the question. You know, he's a really big, strong, athletic kid. 84 seems to be, that was obviously where he was going to be coming out of high school. You know, based on his weight or his height and stuff, that's probably where you think he would be. But I don't think 97 would be completely out of the question. The problem is this is the year to wrestle 97 for the Hawks if you want a shot, because Jacob Warner coming in next year, you know, most likely redshirting this year, but coming in the lineup next year, chances are you have no shot at making the lineup there without an injury. So, you know, Cash Wilkie's going to be at 84, so it's going to be an uphill battle either way. But 84 is probably his better chance to be successful at Iowa.
So kudos to Cook for making it happen. I think 84 is going to be a spot that in a year from now he's definitely going to be pushing the pace. If not, he's going to make people around him a lot better. The time I have to talk to him, people really like to be around him, and those are the type of guys you want in your room. And that brings me to this, Pat Downey. Pat Downey on Twitter, we all know that story, right? We've had him on Potentially Dangerous. Kind of seemed like, you know, he was a completely different person on that podcast. Week later, he blasts me on Twitter for something ridiculous. Like, it just, two split personalities. This is a guy that Iowa message boards are saying, Pat Downey comes to Iowa, I'm not supporting Iowa. I'm not going to go watch anything. I'm not giving money to the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. And then we've got people on the other side. We're going to go and watch Pat Downey because you never know what's going to happen with Pat. And he could be a difference maker from Iowa getting 5th to 2nd or 3rd. You know, if Spencer Lee comes on. Huge game changer for Iowa at that 84 94-pound weight, depending on what goes on with Wilkie. So, me personally, you know, I think if you're Tom Brands and Terry Brands, if he becomes a cancer in the room, he's gone. But why not take a chance on a guy like that has that potential, not only at the college level, but the Hawkeye Wrestling Club level? You know, if you can change him, they've taken chances on Montel Marion. There's been other guys. You know, Mike Evans was an easy guy to deal with in the room that no one really knows his story because of there's not a whole social media there. So Pat Downey, what's you're out in that neck of the woods, man. What are you kind of leaning towards? Are people on the left or the right as far as hatred or love here?
Yeah, I mean, you hear it both ways. There's a ton of people. I've heard a lot of the same stuff, but to me, I want to know how many of those people that are saying they're not going to be Hawk fans anymore, or how terrible this is, how many of them are the same people that, you know, are putting heat under Tom Brands and saying he's not getting the job done and he's not winning national titles, things like that, you know. Yeah, we'd love to have 40 squeaky clean, great athletes in the room with no issues, things like that. But the reality is, at times, programs got to take a chance. He is a game-changing wrestler. If you take away the off the mat, he's a game changer. Like you say, he could easily be the difference in them being, like say, 5th or 2nd, whatever it may be. But he's going to make a difference. He's going to get, if he gets in that lineup, he's going to be an All-American. He's got a chance to be a finalist. You set those rules, just like you said. You set those rules. If he doesn't meet them, he knows the deal. Everybody knows the deal. But Tom Brands, you know, if he needs to do something, if these people want to win national titles, I think this is a move you got to take a chance. It's for 1 year at this point. You know, really, if he's not eligible first semester anyway, you're really keeping him eligible for 1 semester. He's graduated. 2nd semester isn't going to make a big difference. You know, keep him out of jail, keep him out of trouble, get him on the mat, try to win a national title. You know, that's what you're going to do. He can bring you freestyle experience. To me, it's a risk worth taking at this point. I think he could be a huge boost for that team. And, really from what I've gathered, talking to some people, there are a lot of people that personally know Pat Downey that really like Pat Downey. I know he's got an online persona to a lot of people on these message boards that don't like him, have never met him. I've personally never met him, but I know a lot of people that have that actually really enjoy spending time with him. So, I think it's the right move for the Hawkeyes at this point. And like you say, if he messes up, he's out the door. He had his chance, but hopefully he's learned. He knows this is it. This is his last year. This time to go. So he's got to clean it up and do what it takes to try to win a national title.
It's split personalities for sure. I mean, I think if it happens, I think the Hawkeyes want to see a commitment from him. It's not like – here's the way I take Hawkeye fans are kind of looking at this. Well, it's Pat Downey's decision. I don't think it's Pat Downey's this decision. And this is not me having inside information. This is kind of what I've kind of gathered from both talking to both parties or talking to people close to the program. Is this is going to come down to whether Iowa wants him in the room. It's not whether Pat Downey knows that this is going to be the best room for him. So ultimately, if Tom Brands and company think that this is the right move for their program, it's up to them. And Downey has to show a ton of initiative to make this happen. He's got to move to Iowa City. That's probably got to move right away. And he's got to get his classes done, and he's got to get into grad school. What I've been told, he's got really good grades too, so that's not really going to be an issue. It's just a matter of getting things done in a specific time frame, and not to be a menace to society. So crazy stuff out of Iowa, man. Pat Lugo. I mean, this is going to be a fun year if it's anything like the summer. Hawkeye Wrestling Club people have been just coming out of the woodwork, trying to raise money. There's facility talk. I think that's going to happen. So all good things out of Iowa City. Great things out of Cedar Falls, too. UNI. Wow. Lanning Michael Millage. I know you're close to the Millage family, and I was literally with Travis and Michael a week prior to this announcement, and I was out, had a couple beers, got a couple beers in Travis. I was like, all right, where's he going? What's the deal here? Trying to get the lowdown. And I kind of got the feeling that he was going to Iowa State. What have your thoughts been, I guess, talking to Mike and talking to Travis here the last, since the state wrestling tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I know North Carolina State was a really big school on his list. Frank Beasley led the charge out there. He even visited. Really liked it. And then when the Iowa State staff came in, he worked out there a few times, was really enjoyed his time down there. I don't know if you noticed, but I actually had a draft up for a while of I thought Millage was going to commit to Iowa State at one point. But, he through it all, New Hampton's close to Cedar Falls. He worked out with a lot of these guys. Obviously his buddy Keaton Gertz is there now. He became friends with Lara, some of the other guys in that group. And just working out with the coaches, getting to know them all. I think he just came down to he's just comfortable. You know what I mean? It just felt like home for him. I know he liked the opportunities presented by some of these other schools. He even visited Iowa a couple times, things like that. But I think it just came down to just that gut feeling of, I know thinking he can win anywhere, but that was where he felt was the place that he wanted to spend his next 5 years. That's where he felt at home, and that gave him the best chance to win. So, UNI's kind of got, getting Millage with Lara there, Gertz there. I mean, where are all these guys going to fit in the lineup? I mean, Millage commits to a school like that. I mean, where are they going to find spots for these guys? I mean, I've been hearing that Gertz is getting pretty big, so I think he can go up a weight class. Maybe do a Millage, Lara, Gertz type lineup. And is that what you're thinking, or? I'm not sure it won't be Lara, then Millage, and then Gertz type of lineup. Millage has put on quite a bit of size as well. I think, you'll see him at least 138 this year, if not higher. I know Gertz has gotten big. Gertz has always had a chance to, a pretty good frame on him, chance to get a little bit thicker, and I think he has been. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. I think you'll see Millage at 41 or 49. I think Gertz 49, possibly, get up to 57 by the time it's done. So you never know. It doesn't hurt to have all these guys in the room, as we've seen, like we were just talking about in Iowa, guys leaving, guys coming in. a lot can happen. You try to get the best kids you can. It's a good problem to have, but I think Mother Nature might help this one sort itself out a little bit. I think a couple of these guys have been growing quite a bit, so hopefully they'll all find a spot in the lineup. And I just love seeing these Iowa boys stay in state wherever it is. So
I agree with you there. Losing like Alex Thompson in Nebraska, just killer. When you stay in Iowa, you become an Iowa legend. Like, you go to the state fair and people, know who you are. People that have gone out of the state, you just don't talk about them. It's just unfortunate, right? I mean, it's just something about wrestling in Iowa that makes you a star. It really does. And people go out of state, it just doesn't do the same. Which is unfortunate, but that's just what people know in Iowa. They read in the newspapers. They don't read about when you go to different states. So kudos to them. Gable Fox gets a pin at War at West Gym, and I think he just picked UNI because he got that he got that fall at War at West Gym. Real close to home for Gable Fox. One of the arguably maybe a nicer kid than Michael Millich, which was really tough to do. And I really like that kid, Don Bosco. And then obviously picking up Jack Wagner. So Fox at 25, obviously. And then they got McConkey from Atlantic. I think McConkey's kind of following like the Costello path. Like, don't know who Costello is. And people are like, well, who the hell is McConkey? And then McConkey comes in. So I feel like McConkey's kind of walking down that same path Costello is. Is that, as a guy that does rankings, is that kind of on the right level there?
Yeah, I definitely think you are. I think Costello junior year came on quite a bit, but he was still just a little bit under the radar. Had a big summer before his senior year. Took that into the year, just made huge gains, became a, big recruit, gets a scholarship from Iowa. We know where he's at now. Same path as McConkey, honestly, even during his junior year, he had a really, really good year. But there was other things going on, a lot of people wondered if he could beat Spencer Trineri. You had Cooper Lawson getting hurt, a lot of different things going on. McConkey's now beaten Trineri a few times, who's also ranked at heavyweight. He had a big summer. He beat Tyler Curd in Fargo. He's had some really nice wins. I definitely think it's the same type of trajectory. But I'm going to go as far as to say I kind of wonder if McConkey's even got higher upside than Costello. I think he's a little more athletic. Doesn't quite have the size. Costello's big and solid. He's hard to move around and score on. But at times, he needs to develop more offense going into college. I think McConkey's a little bit more well-rounded on the offensive side of things. So I actually would love to see these two wrestle in a couple years in college. I think they're both going to be solid heavyweights. Costello's going to have Cassiope pushing him. McConkey's going to have Carter Isley there for a couple years. So it'll be interesting to see how their careers play out. But I do agree. It's a very similar path. I think McConkey's just shooting up the boards. And I think it's a great under-the-radar pickup for UNI. I think he was going to be a sleeper wherever he went, and UNI got in and grabbed him before anybody else did before his senior year.
Well, we're on this topic. This UNI, how they're doing an awesome job with in-state recruits. We have to bring up this Michael Millich thing that came up on a forum. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I pop my head into forums every once in a while. It's a great way for our articles to get out to direct fans. Yeah, but this one came to me. I don't pop over to UNI much. Not a lot of movement. But there's been some movement here this summer. When Michael Millich commits, the very next day, a post comes. This is from the Tom Brand School of Recruiting. I do not care if he is a ... hole. He can wrestle. Must have lost out on the Fort Dodge kid. Not a fan of this move at all, period. Then someone comes in and says, Papa, not sure I follow, unless you're referring to Pat Downey taking an official to Iowa. Big Papa comes back, not a fan of this commit at all. Watched his actions the past 3 years. Great wrestler. Not sure he brings much else to the table. So, why is this a big deal? People on message boards are hiding behind a username. And that's what I hate about it. Use your real name if you're going to come out and do something. Well, in this case, Not sure exactly who the person is. I'm 95% sure who it is, but it is a high school coach within the conference that is allegedly saying this. Now you're saying, well, maybe Milledge's family needs to kind of have a little thicker skin, right? Well, this is something that they're going to have to deal with. When you're going to UNI, there's going to be people that are going to doubt you and, talk crap about you not making a lineup, whatever. They're going to freaking fine-tune everything. Since once you get out 18, it's all hands on deck. But this is coming from an Iowa high school coach, and I think that is why it struck some chord with some people. And I think it's just completely out of line. And if you believe in this, this is I think you either need to have your name, sign your name, or you just don't say it all. Keep it within your nucleus of friends. Don't make it public. That just is a no-no and totally unprofessional. Lars, what are your thoughts on forums? How can we kill these things?
I used to be on the forums a lot. I used to run one of the forums, as you know, different things like that. But I really don't go to them anymore. I don't, other than people sending me stuff that's on forums from time to time, I try to stay off of them. I got kind of sick of them. But I agree with you. The fact that this is a high school coach at a nearby high school, somebody who's been around him a long time, probably would have been better off left unsaid. If they want to talk about it amongst themselves at his school or whatever it may be, that's fine. Have your opinions. I don't know that, this guy's close to the UNI program as well, which to me makes it even worse. He's well connected to the conference. He's well connected to UNI. Why go on there and blast him for this? This is a 2-time state champ, 3-time finalist, Flow finalist, Fargo All-American. I've known the kid pretty well for a while. Obviously I'm from Cresco. Some people in Cresco have opinions of him as well because he transferred out of there. But I have nothing but the utmost respect for Michael and Travis and the rest of the family. I think he's a good kid, and to go on there and say what he did is just a shock a little bit to me and completely unnecessary. I don't know why it needed to be said in that kind of manner, but teach his own. But I think when these two teams meet each other in the high school season, there's going to be a little bit of extra motivation and fireworks. That first duel might be a fun one to go to.
Well, in wrestling, there could be two different people, right? You're a person on the mat, and then you're a person off the mat. And yeah, every wrestler's going to be probably a jerk or a dick on the mat. But like a guy like Max Lyon, right? Like he's like a freaking little puppy dog, and he doesn't like want to upset anybody. It seems like, but he's like silent but deadly. And maybe somebody like Michael Milledge, if you're not wrestling him, get up. He wants to score points, and if you're not on, I don't know the whole story, but there's two different sides of things. This is a guy that on multiple websites there's people talking about him donating his state wrestling medals to Logan Luft. Logan Luft's family, or he put it in his casket. This is something that these kids bleed for. To do that. That's all I need to be told about someone's character. That's not for show. You don't just give somebody your medals for show, in my opinion. That's something near and dear to people's hearts. So that's all. Basically what I'll say about it again is I think high school coaches stay off message boards. Totally unprofessional, and no. So while we're at that, I'll give a plug to our Iowa Wrestling Facebook group page that we are started, trying to get people off these message boards. So people have to use their own username. They have to use their names in this group. It's basically a forum format. You go on, you post articles, you post your tournaments, post camps you got going on. It's all free in this group. We've got almost 500 people in it, so this will be a great platform for people to, debate topics and whatnot and not hide behind a username. So a little plug for our Facebook page at iWrestle. Pretty easy to find once you get up on there. So we've been on here for a little half hour. I want to get to Brody Teske, the top uncommitted guy in Iowa. Now that Thompson has committed to Nebraska, and talked to him a little bit after Fargo, why he wasn't there. I don't feel like it's my place to disclose why he wasn't at Fargo. Everyone has their reasons. I do know the Laras were injured, so that is clear the air there. They were 100% injured, but Brody Teske definitely taking his time after his cadet worlds or his UWWs, and recruiting is really a big thing for him right now. He's taken some visits. Now he's really focusing on his training, getting ready for the season. I think Iowa and Iowa State and Penn State are really the leading top three based off what I've talked to him. He hasn't told me that. He's given me a top five. Obviously, that's on IA Russell. But he's kind of like Millage, too. He's up there wrestling in the CRTC, and people are, Lara, Cade Lara committed there, so things are kind of rolling up there. What are your thoughts on, what have you been hearing on the, the Teske front of where he's leaning?
Yeah, I'm hearing similar things. I think those three schools are definitely in on it. My gut feeling tells me he stays in state somewhere. Penn State comes calling, you're going to listen. It's obviously got to be a great honor to have Cale Sanderson, calling you up. But my guess is he stays somewhere in state. I think it's a tough decision, Part of it is, does he want to be a 25-pounder? If he wants to be a 125-pounder, Iowa's going to be a tough place to go. You got Spencer Lee waiting in the wings, but they have an obvious opening at 133 now, like we talked about earlier. Iowa State obviously hasn't had a great track record as much over the last, 5-10 years since Cale left. However, ton of momentum. They've got the new coaching staff. Everybody's excited about the program. I think they're heading in the right direction. They've done some good recruiting already since they've been there. They got, a young nucleus now with guys like Kanan Storr and Parker and all those guys as well. Does he want to be part of building that back up? Does he want to go to Iowa where, you think what they've been doing, and they got Marinelli and Kemmerer and Lee and Warner and all those guys for years to come? Do you step in there? Can you possibly be the difference maker to put them over the top? It's kind of a different decision. I think a lot of it does come down to maybe training with the Cyclone Club. Is that a level of comfortability and names? And obviously scholarship money is going to come into play, which, none of us are going to know what he's getting offered from any of the schools, but a lot of speculation out there as to what schools offering what. So I don't know. I have a tough time deciding where I think he's going to go. I don't really think that he knows at this point where he's going to go. So it'll be really interesting, but my gut tells me he stays in state. I just have a tough time deciding whether he's going to be a Cyclone or a Hawkeye at this point.
I think just looking at the situation based off of, needs of Iowa, Penn State, who's going to give what, I think that Penn State's going to be hard after Brody Teske now, especially with Suriano leaving. I think that they are going to, go after him pretty hard dollar-wise. And I know, obviously, Iowa's going to, too, because I think, that 1-2 punch, could Teske, Spencer be, the next Gilman, Clark, McDonough, Ramos. I think that's what you sell Teske on. And if you're Iowa there, Iowa State, they've got some guys there. I think, I don't know dollar-wise what Dresser's got going on, but I think, he's been an Iowa fan all his life from what I've been told. But that lure of going to Penn State, especially if there's big money behind it, especially, if they're promising, maybe stuff with the PWC after, or the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. You never know what somebody can do. But keeping him in state after Thompson goes out of state, I think very, high priority that one of the top two guys stay in Iowa. So Iowa State, UNI, Iowa got to be, pushing hard for him right now. But we'll see where he ends up. I think he's going to make a live commitment on IA Russell. So we'll find that out. So looking like a commitment based off what I heard from him is going to be probably the start of the season. They're going to be opening up the Fort Dodge wrestling room, brand new wrestling room. So maybe a ribbon cutting announcement type deal there. So we'll see what happens, but we'll keep you up to date on that. And then as we go here, Thomas Gilman, the World Championships. Realistic expectations for you of how Thomas Gilman will do.
Whew, realistic's a loaded word. I think he's wrestling extremely well. I think he's freestyle is a great thing for him. I think he's going to have success on that level. But this is a big one. This is he's been to some junior tournaments. He's obviously he went through trials and looked great, but this is a big step up. He's not rated top 20 in the world, so is it realistic to say he's going to medal? I don't know. I think he's capable of medaling. I guess my hope, trying to be halfway realistic at this point, is maybe get into a medal match, see what happens. Maybe he can fight for a bronze. I would obviously love to see him, make the finals, bring home a gold. But, I think if he finishes even top 8, I think it's a good performance for him in his first trip overseas. Hoping for better, but to be realistic, I think, he's got a lot of work cut out for him to bring home a medal.
I think he's got a lot of work. I think by him proving that he's the best in the United States really kind of sold me on it. Really kind of, you think Ramos, no one thought Ramos could get it done. Gilman has had way more experience in freestyle. Like you said, he's got the experience at the junior level. He's seen a lot of these guys. And by looking at his interview he had in his presser at Iowa, he's got confidence back, which I think he might have lost a little bit, but he's been keeping himself busy. And what I do know about Mark Perry, I spent about 3 hours with him one day, and this dude's got film on everybody. And I know that Mark Perry is going to have every single kid, guy, whatever, not recruited, but scouted for who Thomas Gilman could possibly match up. So Mark Perry's over there, and I think that's a huge get. He brings another level to coaching that I haven't seen from a lot of people. Instead of he kind of brings really breaking down game film like you would like a football game or basketball, and where maybe the Iowa mentality in the past was take care of yourself and you just go out there and get the job done. Well, now Mark Perry's bringing, more of let's scout him a little bit, prepare for it, let you know what's going on, and develop, or look at somebody that's doing the things right, and then you got to go do this if you want to win on the international level. So while he doesn't have a ton of freestyle experience, I think he's going to be an awesome coach for the state of Iowa, obviously the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. So Thomas Gilman, I think this all comes down to mentally, it's going to come down to where the bracket lays. I think if he can get a match under his belt with somebody that's not a world medalist, gets through the match one, that's when he can get rolling on some things and take it one match at a time. I think the possibility there of medaling is there, but you can't doubt Thomas Gilman at this point, in my opinion. So I would say I'm going to give him a 70% chance at getting a medal. Putting a percentage on it. So we'll see. But we'll have coverage of that. Wrestling gets started next week. I think wrestling starts 2 or 3 in the morning or something like that, Lars?
Yeah, I think it's 3 in the morning if I remember right. And then medal matches will be at noon, I believe.
Yeah, so we'll have coverage of that. Unfortunately, Ross is not staying in Paris for the World Championships. He tweeted that picture out that he was there with his wife, so that was pretty cool. But he's not staying there. But we'll do as much coverage as we can. Track Wrestling's got a free, $9.99 stream that's going to be happening, so we'll definitely be covering that.
Gilman wrestles Friday for sure. For people that don't know, it starts Monday, but Gilman doesn't wrestle till Friday.
So Friday night. Thomas Gilman, Friday morning. Well, so that would be Yeah, Friday morning.
Yep.
So we'll definitely have coverage on our Twitter. Anything else that we can get to today? You think?
Well, there's a big event coming up here in October sometime.
Yeah. So big news. The conflict at Carver this year. Registration's open. You can check that out at on our website. We just put out the press release, I guess you could say, for that. Or you can go straight to conflictatcarver.com. Register. Everything is up right now. And what's new this year, they've got 13 mats this year. So 13 mats, 10 on the floor of Carver, 3 in the Dan Gable complex. So that will hopefully speed some things along. I know there's some people that have been asking a lot of questions about that and are complaining about it. So sounds like Luke Eustace and Nate Iorst, they really kind of figured out how to try to move this thing along. What else, talking with Nate, the tournament director, what else are they going to try to do to kind of speed some things up this year?
Yeah, I think they're going to look into timing on matches on the backside. I know in the past the coaches have wanted to not shorten matches within constellations. I think some of that might come into play if they start to get behind. And then, like you say, they got 5 more mats, so they got more or less a platform to put around the outside for people who have been there when you first come out of the tunnel. On that end, there was never mats. They have it so it's going to be even now, so they can fit 2 extra mats there, as well as have 3 mats in the wrestling room. But winning championship side will all be out on the floor. So if you want to wrestle the Carver floor, keep winning. Some constellations will be run in the wrestling room later on, so that just speed things up, keep it moving. I know with talking to Nate, they've done a lot of simulations of tournaments with, the size of the capit, the length of matches with this many mats. And they really truly believe that, this tournament's going to be over, late afternoon or early evening, that it will not run, really late like it has in the past. Hopefully we'll get everybody out of there by, 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night. So.
How are they going to run those constellations in the room? Do you know how they're going to do that? Are they going to set a specific, weight classes to those 3 mats in there, or how will they do that?
I think they're going to do it by round. So when it gets to a certain round, most of the weights, I think it'll be based on age group and round. So say, when they get into consolation quarters for, schoolboy or whatever it may be, all those matches will go into the wrestling room, or, whatever age group, the younger age groups, consolations will come first in there. They'll try to keep, I think, the older kids and the championship side of all the brackets out on the floor.
Okay. So that will speed some things up this year for sure. Big news too for the conflict at Carver is they signed a deal with Rudis, so things are going to change up. In the past you've gotten some flips headphones, and they did flips for OWs, right?
Yep.
And then they did Cliff Keen headgears for the winners. And this year they're doing Rudis hats for every winner. They're pretty sick. I just saw them. They're kind of like a trucker type theme. And then they're going to be giving out those sweet Rudis bags that everyone knows about for the OWs at every division too. So Rudis kind of carrying over from Night of Conflict, a partners of ours, coming into Conflict at Carver. And they're going to have, if you guys missed last year, Rudis sets up literally a store inside Carver Hawkeye Arena. And then also one thing to note too, if you are at that level of, maybe you're not going to be in the Night of Conflict, but you want to be there, you want to be at the Conflict at Carver, all registration for Conflict at Carver gets you in the door for Night of Conflict for free. So that's huge. I also read too, Lars, for coaches, if you have a USA Wrestling card for coaches, you get in for free on the floor too. But if you don't have a USA Wrestling card as a coach, then you have to buy a floor pass. Is that something new, or is that something that they've always done here?
Nope, that's something that they've had in the past. So it's always been trying to get these guys registered ahead of time. If you bring your proof of your card to weigh-ins, they will get you a band to be on the floor the next day at the tournament and stuff like that. So as long as you've got your coach's pass, you're good to go.
Perfect. So great things happening out at Carver Hawkeye Arena, October 13th and 14th, Night of Conflict. More details are going to be coming out for general admission for the Night of Conflict. If you're not wrestling in the event, you can get that figured out. If you are a part of a high school or a club and you want to come, we did a sweet ticket package for people at the War at West Gym. That thing was packed. So if you're interested in that, if you're a club coach, high school coach, reach out to me. We'll figure out a way to get you guys at the Night of Conflict at a discounted price. I think we did $8 for 50 tickets, so it's like $100 savings if you buy 50 tickets. So all that comes into play. And if you're out there and you want to be a part of the Night of Conflict, setting it up, be a volunteer, reach out to us too. We're going to need some extra hands on deck this year because we're going to be possibly bring in the Night of Conflict to the middle of the arena this year, move it back to where we originally started, put bleachers around it, put a bunch of seats on the floor so we can get more of a high school feel how those duels are, because it's so hard to, we could put 1,000 people at Carver and it looks like there's 100 there. So look out for those things and more matchups. So anything else for potentially dangerous here?
No, I think just for people who haven't seen, we do have 3 matches announced already. You got number 3, Brandon Whitman from Michigan coming in to wrestle Joel Shapiro from West Des Moines. So 3 versus 4, right there's a headliner for anybody across the country. I can't help but get excited about that one. Colin Shriver, everybody in Iowa knows this kid. Number 7, Jeremiah Reno coming in out of Missouri. This is going to be another phenomenal lightweight match. These two can really get after it. They both have just huge lists of accomplishments. And then Luke Kemmerer. People know the Kemmerer name out of Pennsylvania. Luke Kemmerer is coming in to wrestle Cade DeVos of Southeast Polk. So 3 really good matchups already. I know Tony and Ross and I have been on the horn with a lot of really good kids all around the country. We have a lot of people wanting into this event. Both in-state and out-of-state. So we have a few more matches already set up. We'll get releases out for, and look for some really big ones coming yet as well.
All right, well, this has been episode 95 of Potentially Dangerous. Next week, we got to talk about this, Lars, the transfers from Indianola to Southeast Polk. We're going to get my take on, and hopefully your take or Ross's take on the transfers that are happening in Iowa high school and across the country. Is it good for our sport? Is it bad? Get our thoughts next week on Potentially Dangerous right here on iawrestle.com.
Get low when the whistle go.